Okay, here we are at the bottom of Bombala Street looking to see if we can fly today. And there's a glider in the air and there's whitecaps on the ocean, and these trees here are moving. So if we look out here and we look at these trees in front of this house here, they're all wriggling around nicely, so that shows there's enough lift. And the whitecaps on the ocean, to me, there are wind lanes, those white sort of clear stripes heading from the top left to the bottom right, which is a northeasterly direction. Those stripes, when they occur, to me it means it's getting close to 15 knots. Those white caps there means it's at least 10 knots. So my forecast, just looking at these trees and that water, says that this wind is approximately 13 knots. And those trees over there, especially that palm tree, is rocking around quite a bit, so there's no bubble today. These trees down the front here are all moving, so that important criteria about the bubble isn't there. So now when we arrive in the car park, I look at these trees up here to the right, and the way they are wriggling around gives me a really good idea how firmly the wind is heading into the trees. So those trees rocking around that much to me says I can definitely stay up, and they're even rocking around down there, and right down the front there they're rocking around quite strong. So that one down the bottom there, I'm thinking, well, that could even be 14 knots. So then it's a case of on getting on the limit of my normal sized glider, because at 15 knots I tend to then use my little glider. So we'll just come over here and have a look at these trees, and as I walk down the path there, I'm watching those trees up there the whole way as I'm walking along. So it's such good wind, it means the little glider will stay up. So the forecast is often to increase in this sea breeze, with the high pressure off in the Tasman below us. So it's going to get strong, so I'll take my little glider. So here I am almost at launch, looking at how much those trees are moving up there, and then these trees behind launch are very informative, because I use them when I'm standing on launch thinking about whether to fly or not. I can see those silvery, pale, smooth lines on the ocean heading up to the right corner now. So coming from this direction that I'm facing in that direction, which means it's not going to be coming over that left cliff. I'll be able to launch with the air still coming in front of that cliff on the left. Here I am on launch, and actually one of the first things I'm looking at is for twigs across this area of the artificial turf. If there's any little branches down here, it's a valuable thing to pick them up so that when you pull your glider up you don't have any twigs. And I'm looking at these trees up there. That's quite a brisk wind, and I know I'll be staying up. Even these bushes down the bottom here, the wind is blowing that way. So now looking around to the front, we've got no wind streamer here. There's a wind streamer over there, but I can look out there and see that the wind is coming from that direction there, which means it'll come up here with a little bit of a twist. If I was in a hang glider, I'll get more lift on the right wing, but in the paraglider it's going to be above that. Look down to the rock shelf, see that the waves are not crashing up, washing all over here. Sometimes on a high tide you can see that the water comes right up here, especially if you're flying at night, the tides are higher. Look along there at that sandy strip. There's a nice runway there that we can land on without any rocks. So we've got that strip to land on, this whole area to land on, and of course if we go around the corner there we've got that whole beach to land on. We can see the tide is out, the rock shelf is all visible. Now the haze on the horizon, you can see a bit of dark haze over there, it's clear over there, and Port Stephens sandhills are misty, but they're not expanded or upside down, or there's no mirage. So there's no inversion. That wind is clean right on the water. And those whitecaps are coming right in, and the water down here within the first few 100 meters is choppy, wind-blowing water. So that's a strong wind all the way into here. Look down the cliff there, we can see those trees rocking around, so the wind is coming up here with plenty of lift. That white streamer shows that the wind is coming up at an angle like that, and with this angle we should have lift going across to that hill there. Looking back up there, those trees are rocking around a lot, so I certainly wouldn't be using my full-size glider here unless I was very, very keen. Now with the glider blowing away, I keep these rocks up here to hold the tail down. So if you ever arrive at launch and there's rocks on the launch, don't throw them away. Now the same on this side. So that looks pretty good. Now I want the center cell up the middle. That's all that's important. Those end cells can stay down here. I want to inflate that center cell first. Just hopefully that wing will sort of stay out like that and no lines over the top. Check there's no line over there. Alright, so it looks pretty rough, but I'll just have to have control over it. So this wind still getting strong. It's at least 15 knots, I'd say. Looking at the trees, that's 15 knots or so. So it's strong. I'm a bit behind those leaves there, so it might be a bit crooked. Now walk towards the glider as I put the harness on. So I take my brake and I've got the C and D risers there. Come down this handle. C and D risers. Now that's my lifeline. These two sets of risers there are what keep me on the ground. Now I'm ready to go. Look around, it's pretty rough and strong. So I'll just toss this over. Pick up my front risers and get some air into it. So now I can keep it on the ground with those rear risers and it's not going anywhere. So everything's looking good. Check for traffic. Wind is strong. So now as it comes up, it's going to lift me up and I'm going to give it some rear risers to stop it and turn around. To look at this space here, which I can now fly over the top of it and get my lift into wind. So in these conditions I might spend lots of time soaring here. If the wind gets too strong, I can push out in that direction and land down there, or try and go across there, depending on if the wind swings. See, it might swing more to the north.
normally I'd launch and then I'd do a run across the trees in this direction, seeing if I was going up. But it's not for today. I'll stay out in front of this cliff here, where I've got some forward speed without being blown up. Now I look across at that cliff there and I can see that I'm above the top of it, and in this wind direction I could probably easily fly towards it. So I'll give you a demo in a moment. And we're looking down there to see how much landing we've got. We've got all that sand. We can just run along in front of that cliff and land in a big long runway along that sand. Or, of course, we can go across there and land on the beach. But in this direction, if you go up to the car park, you'll be getting rotor off of that point up there. So it'd be best to land down this end of the beach. Alright, so now I'll show you how we decide whether we can go along to that Golden Street cliff. So we've got good lift here, and I now look at that cliff and I'm gliding towards it, and I can see I'm at the top edge of the cliff. So now looking at the shadow there, I can see that I'm not getting blown back over the hill, but it might be too far to the north. I've got plenty of lift. I'm just going to check that I can make it back. When I point in this direction, I've got good speed. Just looking down there, that's no worries at all. Now I've used up some height there, and this is often where we'd be arriving in front of this cliff. We're sort of going down that cliff, and at this point here, there's a bit of a wind funnel in that valley. So it's going to give you no lift at this point. And then you're trying to get onto this cliff, which if the wind was further from the southeast, there'll be no lift here because it's coming sliding off around that corner. In this case, with the wind from our left, the lift is plentiful, but looking at it, I'm still not progressing very quickly for the amount of forward speed my glider has. So there's the eagle up there. So the direction is not a tailwind. Now I'm not going to go around that corner today at this stage while I'm sussing out what's happening here. So now I can come back here and I'm being lifted up, and I've got to watch out for the wind gradient because I could get lifted into an area of stronger wind. So I'm looking at the horizons above the hills to see how high I am. Because I'm over the top of this Golden Street cliff, I'm now using that bluff over there and that ridge line there. I can't see Blacksmiths or Lake Victoria yet, so I'm level with those trees over to the south, well, the southeast, and I'm getting up above them now. I can see over the top, so I'm climbing over them. I've got to be careful of my wind gradient, so now I'm looking down and finding my shadow is over there in the waves, and I'm going forward without any problem. And that's right there. I can see that haze on the horizon, and now I'm looking straight ahead at those wind lanes. They're pointing straight at me there. So that's where I am in line with the wind, and I can look down and see that I'm travelling straight. So that's just confirming I've got forward speed and what the direction is up here. I'm starting to move a bit to the right,